Pangum langaya te girim yat kripatamaham bande Paramananda Madhavam. So we took next chapter, which was called the core of the teaching of the Gita, where Sri Aurobindo explains, actually in a very clear and logical manner, the continuation of the first three chapters. The first three chapters were the demand or a need from the Gita, the divine teacher, and the human disciple. Now, the core of the teaching is about a human disciple and the divine teacher coming together in a way. So one has to reflect the other. One becomes the vessel for the other. And who is this divine teacher? It is the Supreme. The Supreme, which has different poises, poise of transcendental Satchitananda, as we know it, and the poise of embodied Kshara Purusha, Akshara and Kshara Purusha. The Purusha in the becoming, the world as such, with all the multitude creation here. So these his manifestations of Purushottama have to be charged with his presence more and more. And that's the whole major kind of deeper view on the Gita. We already spoke about it in our introductory sessions. I made some presentations. I made another PowerPoint presentation here for us, just to have this overview of few of the concepts before we start discussing, if you don't mind. Let me project. So this, the chapter 4, the core of the teaching of the Gita is, we already looked into the structure of the Gita, that there are 3 sections of Karma Yoga, from the 1st to 6th chapter, of Bhakti Yoga from 7th to 12th chapter, and finally Jnana Yoga, the last 6 chapters. And these sections correspond to our will, effort, action, Karma Yoga, love, emotion, devotion, or the matters of the heart, Bhakti Yoga, and Jnana Yoga, knowledge, comprehension, self-realization. By the way, Sri Aurobindo translates Jnana as self-realization. And of course, this is body, heart, and mind. These are the 3 constituents. So Gita covers all these 3, but in a very interesting manner. It's not just these parts of our existence. They are somehow part of the cosmic movement, yes, the movement of the will in nature, the movement of love and devotion and discovery of the highest divine within the manifestation, and the realization of the unborn self beyond in heaven. Yeah, we can also identify them as earth, body, space in between heaven and earth, heart and emotions, and mind as heaven. Now, this is the end of the last passage from the core of the teaching, from this chapter, what Sri Aurobindo says. He explains this in this manner, and it's quite interesting to read. Let me open it better. The first step is Karma Yoga, the selfless sacrifice of works, and here the Gita's insistence is on action. The second is Jnana Yoga, heaven. So first is earth, second step is heaven. self-realization, and knowledge of the true nature of the self and the world. And here the insistence is on knowledge. But the sacrifice of works continues, and the path of works becomes one with, but does not disappear into the path of knowledge. So the path of knowledge does not overtake the path of works, it enhances it. The last step is Bhakti Yoga, adoration and seeking of the Supreme Self as the Divine Being. And here the insistence is on devotion. But the knowledge is not subordinated, only raised, vitalized, and fulfilled. And still the sacrifice of works continues. The double path becomes the true way of knowledge, works, and devotion. And the fruit of the sacrifice, the one fruit still placed before the seeker, is attained. Union with the Divine Being and oneness with the Supreme Divine Nature. It's something unbelievable. How come that from the union of our constituent parts, of our heart, mind, and will, we arrive at this highest realization of the Divine Being and the Supreme Divine Nature? Somewhere we do not have the link, we do not have true or deeper understanding of our constituent parts, why they are divided and how they can come together and why they have to be united. I was referring that time, first time when I was reading this, to the Rig Veda, the last hymn of the Rig Veda, which is ending with, we will be perfectly composed when we move in our action, our heart, and our mind together. And this is the way to be perfectly composed. What is this composition about? It is the revelation of the divine within manifestation. This is the ideal of the Gita, and I think this is the major core, the core of the teaching. So here is another, before that passage, that was the last passage of that chapter, he says in this way. First, again, 3 steps. First, by the renunciation of desire and perfect equality, works have to be done as the sacrifice by man, as the doer, a sacrifice to a deity who is the supreme and only self, though by himself not yet realized in his own being. So what is this karma yoga? It is the attempt to sacrifice to our higher self without knowing it yet. And this is the initial step. We take it by faith. We believe that it is there. We don't have it yet. None of us realized our higher self yet. Maybe some of us silently enjoying it. But in general, 99% we are people who are seeking to realize our higher self, our divine being within us. And that is the karma yoga. Secondly, not only the desire of the fruit, but the claim to be the doer of the works has to be renounced in the realization of the self as the equal, the inactive, the immutable principle, and all works, and of all works as simply the operation of universal force, of the nature soul, prakriti, the unequal, active, mutable power. Now, the realizations which he offers in karma yoga, they are step by step. First is the renunciation of the fruit of action as the motivation, because every time we are motivated to realize something as a result, we are motivated by the desire, and the desire becomes our drive, our engine, which is leading us away from ourselves, veiling our own deeper true self-existence. So renouncing the fruit of action psychologically, we become free from this urge of realizing the desire. But then we have to have an equal attitude to everything what is happening to us. Equality, equanimity. Samatvam yoga uchyate, as he says in the Gita. Samatvam, the equality, is called yoga. That kind of renunciation which has to take place in every possible approach to activity. So we renounce the preference for modalities of activities. We do not choose this way or that way. We choose whatever way comes to us and learn to be equal in whatever application of our disinterestedness to the activity. It's not totally disinterestedness, and Sri Aurobindo speaks about this. It's an equality. But disinterestedness, udasinatvam, is part of this process. To kind of, you are seated above, as it were. You are raised above. You're looking from above. You realized your, so to say, a poise of witness, as it were. So these two, renunciation from the fruit, the driving agent or the desire, and renunciation of the modality of action, equality, are preliminary steps towards the final renunciation oneself as the doer. One realizes that nature does everything. She moves her forces through all of us. We are like puppets in her hands. She's doing whatever she is to do, and she will be doing it in spite of us. And this is something interesting, this realization that the nature does everything, and we are only unborn self witnessing what she does, is first liberation, real mukti or moksha. Separation of Purusha from Prakriti. Purusha gets his own existence, his own awareness. And Prakriti is doing all the works. He observes it, witnessing it from above. So this is second. It's not only the desire of the fruit, but the claim to be the doer of works has to be renounced in the realization of the self as the equal, the inactive, the immutable principle, and of all works as simply the operation of universal force, of the nature soul, Prakriti, the unequal, active, mutable power. So there is the dynamic aspect of Purusha, which we call Prakriti. She does the works, and he is witnessing it. He is the consciousness within the action. And lastly, the Supreme Self has to be seen as the Supreme Purusha, governing this Prakriti, of whom the soul in nature is a partial manifestation, by whom all works are directed, in a perfect transcendence through nature. This is Sri Aurobindo, in a perfect transcendence through nature. To him, love and adoration and the sacrifice of works have to be offered. The whole being has to be surrendered to him, and the whole consciousness raised up to dwell in this divine consciousness, so that the human soul may share in his divine transcendence of nature and of his works, and act in a perfect spiritual liberty. So these are the three steps. So if I move into the next slide, let me move into the next slide. And I will be coming to the end. Sri Aurobindo considers this to be the Mahavakya of the Gita. I'm making everywhere shortcuts because I want to make this presentation very brief and then to have discussions with you. Mahavakya of the Gita is given in this way, these 3 shlokas. Sarva guhyatamam bhuyah shrinome paramam vachach ishtosi me dridhamiti tato vakshyami te hitam. Further hear the most secret, the supreme word that I shall speak to thee. Beloved art thou intimately of me. Therefore will I speak for thy good. Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mam evaishyasi satyante pratijane priyosi me. Become my minded, my lover and adorer, a sacrificer to me. Bow thyself to me thou shalt come. This is my pledge and promise to thee, for dear art thou to me. And finally, the most important shloka, Sarvadharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami ma shuchaha. Abandon all dharmas and take refuge in me alone. I will deliver thee from all sin and evil. Do not grieve. Now I have 2 small quotations from the previous chapters on the human disciple and the divine teacher, which are kind of summarizing this vision. Let me read first the human disciple. All the strife of our upward endeavor and seeking finds its culmination and ceases in a satisfied fulfillment when we can rend the veil and get behind our apparent self to this real self, capital S, can realize our whole being in this true Lord of our being, can give up our personality to, and into this one real person merge our ever dispersed and ever converging mental activities into his plenary light, offer up our errant and struggling will and energies into his vast, luminous, and undivided will. At once renounce and satisfy all our dissipated outward moving desires and emotions in the plenitude of his self-existent bliss. It is possible to become him in every way. It is possible to get rid of all our struggles, all our energies, mistaken movements, ever converging and dispersed mental activities which are constantly moving back and forth, seeking something solid, something meaningful, and always losing the track and always moving forward. It is possible to dive into his plenary light. It is possible to give our will, which is constantly seeking and struggling with its energies, to his luminous and undivided will, that it will be settled within us. There will be no more struggle. There will be a clarity of force and all our desires. And look how he says about this. At once renounce and satisfy all our dissipated and outward moving desires and emotions. At once renounce and satisfy. When we give all our desires up to him, they are all satisfied immediately. There is no more dissatisfaction. All the desires are satisfied. And about this, the scriptures are talking all the time, that when we realize the divine, all the desires are satisfied. It's an experience. We do not know it, because if we would know it, we would be not in this classroom, I guess, not in this session. And the divine, now, from here we see how the human disciple is to become the divine. From another side, we can see how the divine teacher, the avatar, reaches out to the divine, to the human disciple. When this eternal divine consciousness, always present in every human being, notice, always present in every human being, this God in man, takes possession partly or wholly of the human consciousness and becomes invisible, human shape, and the guide, teacher, leader of the world, not as those who living in the humanity yet feel something of the power or light or love of the divine gnosis, informing and conducting them, but out of that divine gnosis itself, acting from that divine gnosis itself, direct from its central force and plenitude, then we have the manifest avatar. Avatar who is conscious of his divinity, who acts from that consciousness, from the central consciousness. The inner divinity is the eternal avatar in man. The human manifestation is its sign and development in the external world. We are all his manifestation of this internal avatar in us. We are all future avatars, basically. So we are seeking his realization, and he is manifesting himself in us. And these two constitute the core teaching of the Gita. And this is the diagram which I was showing you before. We can see Akshara, Kshara, Purusha, and Purushottama. Yeah. Very similar to Sri Aurobindo's sign. That's why I put it here in the corner. The three upward movements, three downward, and in between this fourth one, which connects Satchitananda with our lower hemisphere of the being, of the becoming. And they are all held up by Purushottama, by the Supreme. He is being manifested through these transcendental and through these movable or mutable Purusha, Purusha in becoming, what we are now here. So this is the core of the teaching in brief. So I will stop here and will open, the discussion. Questions, answers, thoughts, ideas, please. Whoever wants, you can switch on your microphone and start saying something. I don't need to see you. I'm not organizing the discussions. Please go ahead.
I can try, Vladimir.
Yeah, please go ahead.
I did read some of Aurobindo's texts and was fascinated with equality. It's not about getting better or worse. It's about bringing better and worse closer together, he mentions. And this whole notion, he went on about morality too, because it does appear we're not escaping morality in the Bhagavad Gita. In a sense, it is a vehicle. But he spent time saying it's not the morality of you better be good. You better, or Santa Claus, you better not pout, you better not cry, you better be good. I'm telling you why. It's not that. It's a radical self-inquiry of what is my morality. And you can't answer that for me. I can't answer that for you, so to say. We can help each other. Maybe it's fascinating to me. But I do, in fact, have to take responsibility for it at some point. Who am I? What is right for me? What moves me higher or closer to this inner journey? I wrote down that it's that secret. Not only is it secret, it's hidden, and then it's most secret. And which raises the question for me, can I do it alone? You know, this kind of contradiction where I am everything, and yet here's this teacher and the disciple, and I'm caught initially in the surrender saying, I think he says that with that Kurukshetra, like, oh my God, my ego can't do it. And there's just this terror, and I'm alone, help. And then the help comes. But so that morality, can I do it alone? And do I, you know, and the surrender, they're all themes to me. I think I'll go on there. I picked up too that, yeah, it's the doership has to go. Oh, and I did have a friend, and I'll quit with this. I was he took me to a Rangers ice hockey game in Madison Square Garden, and he was a yogi, and he invited me, and it was very nice. And he looked at me at one point and he said, Bill, I haven't had a problem in years. And an arrogant thing to say, I thought. And then, but his state was so love-filled that I immediately got it, that he was actually telling me the truth. That he had gotten to a point where he couldn't find a problem if he even went looking for it, so to say. It was a beautiful, beautiful spiritual kind of awakening and statement to me. So I can be free of problems for 15 minutes in the morning and then pick them right back up before lunch. And it's good to be here. I love the Bhagavad Gita. Sarah came to me. She says, have you ever heard of the Bhagavad Gita? Just yesterday. I said, oh, yes, dear, I have. Joined class. She's like, well, I think I need to read it. I'm like, yeah, that's good. And, she'll find it in her own way. She does. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your sharing. Wonderful. Yeah. Yeah, you're welcome to whoever wants to say something. Yeah. Yeah,
I want to say something. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. I have a struggle for years. You know, I lived, as you know, in an ashram in Brazil, Sri Aurobindo ashram in Brazil for 2 years. And there I seemed, because I was within a monastic setting, I seemed to understand things which I don't that well now in terms of this. Like, I love the words of Sri Aurobindo and stuff like that, but always the question for me is how, you know, like how, like, for example, you know, you all know I practice within Zen tradition. So in Buddhism, they say, okay, you know, like practice. They don't talk of meditation. They talk practice, and that will calm your mind. And that calming of the mind will help you to understand, you know, what you are, kind of thing. And I feel that, yeah, it has helped me to understand much more than I did. You know, I don't have neurotic suffering. I do have problems, Bill. I do have problems. But I don't have that kind of neurotic suffering born of dissatisfaction with my condition or with my life or stuff like that. So for me, the issue here, and I could almost say, Vladimir, that I'm turning, like, this is a very, very important issue for me. It might sound a little bit banal, but it's not at all. It's like the words are wonderful, the vision is wonderful, and how? Yeah, so that's what I'm sharing today. Thank you.
Well, this is the most integral and the most fundamental vision of realization, which was so difficult in the past that Vedic rishis had to leave it behind, unfulfilled, because the humanity was not ready, as Sri Aurobindo says. one thing is to, to drop the whole nature, focus yourself only on that transcendental something, and neti, remove everything and go to that, and neglect your nature, neglect your body, neglect your surrounding, business, food, become ascetic, focus, willpower, one-pointed will, and you go there, sit in the cave for the rest of your life and realize something which is beyond nature, and disappear in it, burn all the bridges and disappear in that beyond. This is an escape, as Sri Aurobindo calls it. An escape brings not the victory and the crown. We came to this world to do something. This world is meaningful. It is in becoming. It is something to become. It's in transition, in constant flux and transition. That's why everything moves. Nothing stays static. But the consciousness grows, either grows or diminishes. So this growth of consciousness in this transition, yes, it's not for very impatient people. Yeah, why don't we get it already? We should be there already. No. We are just at the beginning of this path. And the one who discovered that joy of the divine, even the idea of the divine, the truth of the divine idea even, will be happy even in this transition, because he knows that it is true. The truth is not just the word truth. It is really true, And when you realize something is true here, you really want it more than anything. And that want itself is fulfilling. As Mother says, so what? There are so many obstacles. You will have your aspiration. You will have your consecration. You will have all those movements which are igniting and making meaningful your life. Yes, we are far from the final result, but we are on the way. And we chose this way. Well, once you know that this is the only way, you can't really say no to it afterwards.
Thank you so much. I thank you so much. Yeah, this is wonderful. In one of Sat Prem's book, I think The Mutation of Death or something like that, at the beginning, he has this little line, which I have decided I will make it my intention for the new year. And I think it relates to what you're saying. May my aspiration have the power to reveal what is hidden and to manifest the unexpected. I think that's a wonderful New Year's resolution. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Well,
yes, Robert.
Thank you so much for that exposition. I think looking back on the journey we all seem to make, we have this little flame of aspiration, this search for something. And what is so beautiful about the last Mahavakya in this chapter is that Krishna says that you are dear to me. And I think as we go on the path, we realize that the divine is making more steps towards us than we are making towards him, because that is the truth of our nature, and that is, he's there to help us. And I think sometimes we say, well, how can I do this? I've got a problem. How can I solve this problem? This is very difficult. So you ask him for help. This is what I think I mentioned. I was in the ashram, and this is what the mother was for me. She was someone who I could ask silently for help. And the help came in various ways. I mean, not always, but it was a growing thing, and it is a journey, and the help comes from. I mean, we're all in this together, so the help comes from all sides. It might not come from, it might come from a circumstance or an individual, but in some way it comes, and you think, oh well, that was the way I meant to do it. That's the thing I meant to do. So the divine's love for us is just it's just wonderful, and it keeps you going, and it works.
Yeah. Absolutely, it works regularly, and once we start receiving and using the help which the divine sends, that grace for its own purpose, when we invoke grace for something and it comes for that purpose, it has to be used. We must use it we have to bring it into our life, not just to receive it for our kind of state of, bringing peace into our mind and some light and bliss, and then do something wrong. We have to allow it to act through us. And then this awareness, this receptivity will grow in us. We will be more and more receptive and see that actually the divine grace is everywhere, in every smallest details, in contacts with people, with meeting people, with not meeting people, with becoming sick, with becoming healthy, everything, everywhere. There is a constant help on the way, once we are aware of it, yes. But if we are aware only of our own doings and our own so-called own, because they are never our own desires, because the desires are coming from the universal nature, vital nature. They are everywhere, the same. They are not different for others than for us. These are waves of those waters, of those streams, of those oceans, which are, we are like fish in the water. And of course, we are drinking that water, and all those desires come into us. But when we consider them not to be ours, and we redirect ourselves for the grace and make that ours, then the situation changes, and those desires are no more prevailing in our life and no more torturing us. They're just some small disturbances, and that's it.
Vladimir, hi, this is Ashish.
Yeah, hi Ashish. Well, we cannot see you. Are you visible?
I am kind of, yeah.
Okay.
So it's early morning my time, and just sharing my realization, and it's a bit of an anecdote. So I hope you will permit my lightening the atmosphere. So when I was young, quite young, we used to go to this homeopathic doctor for our ailments. My parents believed that it was a more holistic treatment. And for those of us who've not seen homeopathic medicines, they are like small white round balls about 1 millimeter in diameter. And they are put in a small glass bottles, and the doctor would prescribe a dosage. And they would make those white balls depending upon the diagnosis, and that would have elements that can help cure, whatever are the symptoms. And my complaint was that I had examination fear. Education system in India can be very onerous and very demanding. So before my, the final exams, I used to worry a lot. My throat used to parch, and all kind of things used to happen. So my parents decided to take me to that homeopathic doctor and ask for medicine so that I can be more calm in my studies for the examination. And as it was, we went one evening and he asked what the problem was. And I said, I have this examination fear. And he said, you haven't prepared. I said, I have. And then he says, why are you nervous? I said, I don't know, but I have these funny things happening and it scares me. So he heard me patiently and then went inside his room and came back with a small glass bottle with lots of these sweet white round balls, which were medicines. And he says, take 2 in the night and 2 before your exam in the morning, and do it for the duration of your exams, which was, I think, 3 or 4 days. So I was very happy. I took the medicine, and somehow the symptoms were not there anymore from the second day. So after my exams finished, I came back to him, and he asked me, how did it go? And I said it was magical because the medicine worked. And every time I take that medicine before my exam, my fear disappeared and I could go more confidently. So can I have a subscription? So he said, sorry, but you have to come every time. I don't give subscriptions. So I said, at least can I know what was there in the medicine? Oh, he said, yes, sugar. I said, excuse me? So it's just sugar. So I said, but why did you give me sugar? You need to solve my symptoms. He said, you weren't looking for a solution. You were looking for medicine. So I gave you medicine. And that was the end of my examination fears. So the reason why this came to my mind also was twofold. That one, sometimes we don't know what we are asking. We may be asking from, getting rid of suffering or some sadness or some event that's going through. But in the broader scheme of life, that event may have a significance for which that suffering is essential. And looking back in my life, I've had some very difficult experiences. At those point of time, it was almost end of the world for me. And I really did not know how life would carry on. But 10 years later, they have been pivotal in my life, and they have influenced the direction. So if I had escaped from that suffering, I would not be where and what I am. So at times, we are confused about what to ask. Second, we may not be ready to receive, and that goes back to the chapter on human disciple. If I'm not ready to receive, the solution to my problems, and if I'm only ready for sugar-coated medicine pills, sometimes that is best in the context, and that has a better result than what I was asking in terms of a solution. So that just came to mind. I thought I'll share. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. It's we have to be careful what we ask. As Mother says, some married couples come to her and ask for blessing. She says, if I give you blessing, you have to be ready to receive it. So that would be the truth, and then it might be the end of your marriage. So better not to receive my blessing. Yeah. So no, I'm exaggerating. She didn't say that. She said that you have to know, you have to be absolutely sure that you are adhering to the truth, you are clinging to the truth. And then, of course, blessing works. Yeah? If you are ready to receive the truth, whatever it may be, then you are ready. But if you want some particular truth, some part of it, then it's something else. Then maybe we are not ready totally yet. Yeah, with this morality which you were mentioning also, Bill, it's also interesting because in Sri Aurobindo's view, all these constituents, our will, desires, morality, whatever it is, yeah, dogmas, visions of the truth, religious preferences, they are all means and tools in a way, yeah, on a particular level. And they are all, so to say, embraced and incorporated into the deeper self, into the Purushottama. Purushottama holds these, and through them we can see his presence. Or we may insist only on that particular form, on a particular morality or particular duty. I have this duty, Then we don't have that deeper presence of him within this duty. But he is there within that duty, only not in that mental, fixed and radical form of exclusive form of, if I am a soldier, I must shoot every enemy, yes, because I was given the order. I lose that deeper presence in me, and then I don't see what is right and what is wrong, and I abuse the duty. And many people go for this duty for the sake of abuse, actually. They use the idea of dharma to really abuse dharma, being greater dharma. Yeah? So we can see this all the time in our life. Not to say that there are contradictions between dharmas. And that's the major message of the Gita. Actually, it's the major topic in this chapter, the teaching of the Gita, yes? The core of the teaching, this chapter. He speaks about duties, how they are contradictory, how we choose from the Gita what we want to see, Some people would say that Gita is about the duty, about the disinterestedness in the action and the duty. And there are many people like this who are speaking about Gita in terms of duty. Kartavyam karma, the karma which is to be done, and you have to do it. If you're a teacher, you have to teach a student. And there Sri Aurobindo is joking in a beautiful way. If the duty should be the everything, then Buddha has to return back to his palace and to become a king, and not to, to become the Buddha. And so on and so forth. This is Vivekananda has to drop everything and run back to feed his mother because his mother suffered. They didn't have enough money costs. But what about duty, he says, to the transcendental? And this is also interesting. Don't you have the duty towards the transcendental to drop all duties and to discover the divine? It's also one of the duties. So there are many duties and they are all contradictory. But we can find in them the presence of the Supreme. We have to find the proper place and time for them, proper application for them. And for that we need this poise, this presence of the Supreme within us when we do those duties. Right, some other ideas, thoughts about... So it is possible, what Sri Aurobindo says, it is possible to live the conscious, different type of life in every action, in every feeling, in every thought, and that it would be charged with the divine presence in us. And it changes the quality of our life. It brings the delight into our existence. Delight into everything, and not only good things, but also bad things look very different. They are not anymore bad. They are just the circumstances which we are in to manifest more and more light and truth. And, there was a story. Yes, Marta.
I'm sorry, I would love to hear your story.
Never.
I can save this comment. I was just, well, thank you. I think there was a lot to reflect on in this chapter about personal responsibility, because we learned that Prakriti is the doer. Nature acts through us. We are not the doer of our actions. So I thought it might be interesting to explore the implications of that. Because we know that Arjuna is not considered to be the slayer of those who he's going to slay. It's the divine who's acting through him, because that's the way it's all destined to be, for the background reasons that we understand. But this sense of things being in a way predetermined by our natures is complex, and I'm not fully resolved in my own thinking about that. That's, I guess I'll leave it there, because I think it's very, very subtle and very complex, and we have responsibility for our actions to some degree, but then if our natures are determining them, and the divine made us what we are, that's another layer to it.
Right. No, it's a beautiful contradiction for the mind, of course, because truly speaking, when I started to think, when we choose something in nature, whatever we have to choose, we have choices, and we choose one choice against the other. So the set of choices is already prepared by nature. And predetermination of our choosing is already made in some way. So I can choose only that which I'm predetermined from the choices she prepared. So that is the illusion of my individual will, illusion to a certain degree, of course, because it's never totally an illusion, because behind there is a will of the greater being, which wants this play with me, with my will and this nature to take place. And he wants, so to say, I speak on his behalf, not very fair, but I would just, it's just the language, that he wants me to realize that actually there is his will. And I can prepare my will and give it, merge it into his. And then there are no boundaries. All this, what I consider to be good or bad, can be just the opposite. And not necessarily that what I see and what it seems. Because I do not see the whole picture. I do not see where it leads, what is next, why this happening now, why that Second World War had to happen. Who could have told us that that was the only way out? It was a disastrous war. And it was necessary. As Sri Aurobindo explains, what the material, that is the approach of the divine. The material is very rough. It needs a little, acting upon it to make it softer, to make it more receptive of the divine values. And look what happened after Second World War. Such a long and prosperous peace, with a huge and very rapid development of all technologies, humanity, human unity, and so on. EU, it was really very interesting development after the Second World War. So we never know. We do not see the full picture. We do not see Trikala Drishti. Yes? Do not have the realization of 3 times where we are heading at. And what problems we have to solve, what resistances are there. It all makes sense.
Couldn't we also say, Vladimir, it seems that acknowledging that Prakriti is the force that is acting through us is one step. But the next step, perhaps, is realizing that Purusha, she is under the sanction of Purusha, and to take the poise of Purusha, in which she will do her dance for Purusha, for this higher poise. And it's at that poise that there is, that we are beyond the ego and our personal will, and we are, not we, but the Purusha, is directing and controlling and sanctioning all that Prakriti does. I mean, to me, at that place, it's a little easier to understand, because Prakriti isn't just on that force, or that energy doesn't have to be, and doesn't have to be a blind force, right? It can be through a higher consciousness and a higher direction that's acting behind it and supporting it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Basically, you are describing what Sri Aurobindo says about the 3 major liberations in his yoga. Yes? The first liberation is separation of Purusha from Prakriti. That is what Karma Yoga leads us to, that I am not the doer, the nature is the doer. I am observing nature, witnessing that doing of nature through 3 gunas. It is only gunas rotating in gunas. When I am lazy sitting, I am also doing something, or I am running, I am doing something. These are gunas rotating, but there is consciousness in me which is observing. Now, once I realize that consciousness, I'm never looking at Prakriti the same way. I see that she is the executrix of everything here. But after some time, I notice that I'm not only the observer, Sri Aurobindo says, but I'm also the witness. He's not only the observer, but he is also the sanctioner. He sanctions the movements of Prakriti. He is Anumanta. He sends Anumati, the support, the grace, the answer. There is a call and there is the answer. And so Prakriti as if offers to Purusha something. Can I do this way? Would you like this to be this way? And he would say, yes. And then she does it happily. And then he says, no. And then she stops doing it. This is how the sanctioning is a kind of in a primitive language happens. So she's constantly appealing to him, calling to him, proposing to him what to do and how to do it, and he has to give his yes or no. And from this yes or no, many things depend. By the way, in this yoga, in integral yoga, Sri Aurobindo says we have to have that power of Purusha to say yes or no to the Prakriti. Because without this power, we can't do much. Prakriti will be going on with all kind of forces, desires, vital, lower, higher, mixing, trying. She likes to experiment. There is no problem. She has no time frame. She has all time for herself. She can enjoy her creation forever. And for him, of course, so that sanction is important. Yes or no. If we get that initiation, he says it can be gotten by initiation or by grace. If we get it, that possibility of Purusha's will of Purusha. And then this third step, we realize that he is not even Anumanta, the sanctioner. He is also the Ishvara, the Lord. When he takes into his hands the whole Prakriti, and she is no more Prakriti, she is his Shakti. She is his direct power. And there is no more division on Purusha and Prakriti. There is only him everywhere, acting, living, experiencing, loving, enjoying. So this is the final say. This is the aim of the Gita. This is the aim of integral yoga. And as you know, that integral yoga is based on the Gita totally, on these three major yogas: karma yoga, jnana yoga, and bhakti yoga. Yeah. And then there is the yoga of self-perfection. Great. If there are some other thoughts or ideas, please. No?
So, sorry, Ashish again. So I think this is also the reason why the world continuously evolves, because it's in some ways, and maybe at a risk of oversimplifying, it's a dynamic, self-adjusting system. So if I don't do something, then something else steps in to change the course of the world. So I'm reminded of Jacques wanted to speak. He could not talk. Veronica picked up the phone. They had a conversation. This was completely unplanned. So if it was a computer system, it would have crashed. But our ecosystem continues. Probably they'll have another conversation. The dialogue may grow. Jacques may acquire new skills. So it's subtly, without causing disruption to the overall group, it's triggered an additional dynamics which may cause further implications going forward. So that's the beauty of the way this consciousness and the world interaction is designed. So when we think we are not acting, there is something else that fills the gap, and that makes us progress, or that changes the course of evolution at a macro level. I don't know if I was clear, but yeah.
Very
Thanks.
nice. Very nice. Thank you, Ashish. Yeah, it's a nice example of unexpected and it actually creates the curiosity. What story would you like to say? So we will be waiting for this story next time to hear. So it's wonderful.
Vladimir, you just something that I thought about that I don't know how to fully relate it to, but you said there's the third step. And I thought of Alcoholics Anonymous, the 12 steps. And the third step being made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God, as we understood him. And I thought about the Bhagavad Gita, and because I grew up around the 12 steps as well, and in my family, and it's a crushing crisis, a powerlessness, a hopelessness that can't be dragged on anymore, and an insanity, a failing. The enemy's not out there. It's in my own head, so to say.
Absolutely.
And a surrender and a needing and an asking for help and a realization that only a spiritual solution will come. So it's fascinating how these themes show up as archetypes in different spiritual movements. Maybe they're all the same. Who knows? But I was contemplating that. Not that we need to go study the 12 steps, but the whole Arjuna and grace coming in, and community, sangha, teachings, this kind of self-responsibility, morality, inquiry, all of it, meditation. So it's been another inquiry. And I love what you just said about there has to be a yes or a no. I can't, at some point, there has to be a yes and a no. I mean, there has to be some kind of yoga, I guess, for myself. I can't, and there is. So it's not, in the development goes slower than I would like in some areas. And I want someone else to do it for me when in fact there's a lesson for me. And
Right. And we are complex beings. We are not just one thing which can decide. There are many selves in us which pull in different directions and have different agendas. And of course, whenever the one witness or that alertness in us becomes weak, then we immediately get those other forces in us. And that's what you were mentioning. Powerlessness is from that we are occupied by other powers, which kind of rule us as if we are nobodies, like a kind of adhars. We are the vessels occupied by other powers, vital powers. And that's the problem. Then we have to cleanse that, to cast everything out, or let them be and without any influence on us, and find our own being somewhere, which can be in charge of our life, of our vessel, of our body, mind, and vital, instead of being invaded constantly by some, friends, so-called well-wishers, who destroy our lives. And that is the case of all our desires. Unfortunately, we don't see it immediately. We think that we desire, we want, it's my desire, but we don't see how that desire, that particular force entered already and settled and habituated itself within me. The moment I cure myself from that force, I see it's like you woke up, or you became cured, you were all your life sick and suddenly you became healthy. It's a very different feeling. Then you know that you are not that force. Yes, Gilbert.
Yes, sometimes I think that these distractions, desires that I've gone in, they were there for a certain reason, but after a while, they dissolve. They no longer can become the desire that they were the first time or the second time. They dissolve and they become weaker, and then my central desire, which is to get to some truth, becomes stronger as they get weaker, and it's less likely to detract me from going towards the goal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It seems to me a lot of this is like Prakriti is about that. You could, from a certain point of view, it's about like when I say I, am I talking about this physical body and its five senses and its workings and all of that, or is there other eyes? There's higher eyes, because in the microcosm of Prakriti and Purusha is all within this, right? It's certainly within every one of us. So when we say I, what are we, what are we talking about? And I'm in reading the essays, I thought that Aurobindo was saying that, that first step is the karma of not getting the fruit of your actions.
Mhm.
And then the second step is also recognizing that you're not doing the actions. And it seems to me that it helps if you're going to get the fruit of your actions, it's like making a good argument for the fact that you are doing the actions. And if you're not getting the fruit, so it seems to be working together that way. Anyway.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. This is the steps of the same system to get out of this, the involvement in Prakriti, thinking that I am Prakriti, so to say. Whatever she offers, whatever the forces are there, it is me, myself. It is in some way myself, that Prakritic self, so to say, transitional self, instrumental self, but it is not the central self. It is not that which is conscious of these instruments of knowledge. We have to find the one who is conscious. When we say I, usually for the mental beings, it is that Manomaya Purusha I, and the mental I. The one who observes, who says, now I'm thinking this, now I'm seeing this, now what should I do with this? How could I react to this? This is him, Manomaya Purusha, so to say. But behind him, there is the witness, the Purusha, who is not Manomaya, who is unborn self, and who is using this Manomaya Purusha for himself also, for his own sanctions. And there is a lot of truth going through that Manomaya Purusha at the same time, though it is already narrowed down to certain kind of Prakritic movements. So, and using thoughts, dogmas, using chitta, using habits, using memory, all that, what is constituting us as I. Well, this is, we are entering into the yogic psychology of interesting topics. Maybe we could discuss this later. What is this I? And there are several I's. By the way, you can shift from the mental I to the vital I, which is very different I, and you have it also within yourself. It can be a very nasty I. And then you can become very physical I. Like, oh, my body, this me, kind of feeling everywhere, this kind of pain or pleasure or this and that, and becoming very childlike within the physical, very small being. When we go to the doctor, to the dentist, there that I comes. It becomes very different I. It's no more that I, thinking I. It's that small I which is afraid of everything. So we are complex beings. And that is the beauty of this, because the presence of the divine can embrace all of them and shine through all of them in a way. And that is something, the secret knowledge, which we can try to embody in our life, I think. Gita can lead us there. Great. All right, we can stop here for today then. Yes, if you don't mind. Charles didn't say anything with Teresa. Usually they say something. No? Great. Okay, then I will close at this with the mantra. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santo Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om.